Welcome everyone. It is my immense pleasure to welcome you all again in the second session of our week-long moon phase as a part of the annual NASA event, International Observe the Moon Night. Yesterday, it was our honor to host Dr. Joydeep Mukherjee, and today we have a person who actually needs no formal introduction. We all love to hear him time and again. He is none other than Dr. Devi Prasad Duwari. Sir, thank you for joining with us today. আমাদের সৌভাগ্য যে আজকে আপনি আমাদের মধ্যে রয়েছেন। আজকে চাঁদ সম্পর্কে কিছু জিনিস আপনার কাছ থেকে আমরা শুনতে পাবো। গতকাল আমরা চাঁদ রিলেটেড আরো দুটো সেশন শুনেছি, যেখানে হাউ টু অবজার্ভ দ্য মুন এবং মুন ফটোগ্রাফি সম্পর্কে দুটো সেশন হয়েছে। বাট ইট ওয়াজ আ প্ল্যান দ্যাট we should telecast the moon live, but the sky was adverse, and today also we have planned to live stream the moon, but again it is cloudy and we are not being able to live stream today's moon. Now, without any further delay, I hand this session over to Srimati Dalia Ghosh, who will give details of this program, of today's program, and a formal introduction. So now I may request.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Skywatchers Association, I welcome everyone on this second day of International Observe the Moon Night 2020. Skywatchers Association has organized, celebrated this event every year. It has been celebrated in open spaces with the telescope and people queuing up to view the moon through the telescope. Our experts had been there to guide them. And along with the moon, they did get a chance to view the different planets, particularly Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars that are visible at this time of the night sky. But as they say, desperate times need desperate measures. So the pandemic situation didn't allow us to do that. And for that reason, the association has taken the resort of this platform to reach out to all of you. Now, why the moon is observed? Moon is a celestial object that has been an immense interest to human beings right from the dawn of civilization. When the people did not have the proper tools available to see the moon through them, then people viewed moon with the naked eye. And obviously, they imagined all sorts of things. Some saw a man's face staring down at them. Some saw a rabbit running. And also, we have that quintessential Chorkaburi spinning the yarn on the moon. And I'm quite sure all of us, we are familiar with that childhood lullaby our parents or grandparents used to sing to us. Chad mama eshe kopale tu diye ja. And you see that we had also associated the moon with our mama. So the moon had already entered our household and become our mother's brother. And then the techniques, the tools that were necessary to observe the moon perfectly with more precision were evolved. In recorded history, Galileo Galilei was the first person who had made with a combination of lenses, had created a telescope, and he had recorded the observations of the moon. And then he found out, to his immense surprise, that there weren't any water on the moon. Rather, it is fringed with beautiful craters, valleys, mountains. And when further sophisticated telescopes evolved, then people saw that the moon it's not at all a dead object. It's a wonderful, beautiful celestial object to look at. And it is simply mesmerizing. If you put your eyes through the telescope, to the lenses of the telescope and see the moon, the ray craters emanating from the center, the craters emanating from the center, they're really gorgeous to look at. Now that some people observe the moon from the perspective of observation to know about the lunar features. Some people were interested in the geology of the moon. Of what was the moon made of? Was it floating somewhere? Did the Earth capture it with its gravity? Or did it emerge from the Earth itself? So there had been various theories, and after stringent analysis, the scientific community have settled down on the most acceptable and unambiguous theory of the creation of the moon, that is the collision theory. And that went to one part. But another interesting part of our observation of the moon was that of the romantics, the poets, the literers, the music composers, painters. They were just mesmerized by the sheer beauty of the moon. They weren't interested in the geology, they weren't interested in the lunar features, but they were just interested in the beauty of the moon. So whatever we see, that there has been a plethora of perspectives of people, a plethora of reasons of people for the observation of moon. But something is for sure, as was said by Dr. Mukherjee yesterday, that the moon is the single most contributing factor for stabilizing the rotational speed of our dear old Earth. It is because of the moon that the rotation of our Earth has come down to 24 hours a day. And that is a reason which has helped in the formation and sustenance of life form on Earth. So if the moon weren't there, then even simplest life forms wouldn't have evolved, leave alone complex life forms like human beings. So on this note, we start our program today. We have with us some members of Sky Watchers Association who are going to present some different aspects, give us some updates of the different aspects of the moon. We have Rahi Nath, a member of Sky Watchers Association, who is going to give the activity feedback. We have Monjori Roy, another member of Sky Watchers Association, who is going to tell us about the lunar missions. A video would be shown on Chandrayaan. We have with us Shreya Ghosh, a member of Sky Watchers Association, who is going to tell us how we can find out the direction of the place, how we can make out the north, south, east, west of a place by just looking at the moon. But above all, the star attraction of our program is that we are very fortunate to have one of the most coveted personalities in the field of astronomy, Dr. Debi Prasad Duari, who I don't think any of us we need to know his introduction because we all know who he is. He's a wonderful educator and he's a great person and he is the Director, Research and Academics, MP Birla Institute of Fundamental Research, MP Birla Planetarium, Kolkata. So I take the honor of welcoming Dr. Duari to our platform. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. I think I am still at the backstage. The host has to put me on the screen so that I can be visible to all. I think the connection is not working properly. Yeah, now I'm here. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, at least covering half the thing. Okay, now full. It's a wonderful evening and a wonderful night for me. Not only for me, I think for the very enthusiastic members of the Sky Watchers Association, an organization which I love and like not because their members are somehow related to me and the planetarium, but because of the sincerity of their purpose, the integrity of their character in trying to reach out to general people, to young students, and to the community as a whole to talk about the sky. Because basically in this pandemic situation, when people are becoming very desperate, they are very unsure of the future, sky has created a little bit of commotion in their minds because they have realized that while to introspection, sky plays a very big role in our understanding of who we are, where we are, and what we are. So in this respect, this particular event, International Observe the Moon Night, which has been started by NASA and being organized today in Kolkata by Sky Watchers Association, is a very relevant meeting, I will say. At the very onset, I should say that I'm not an expert. I think I'm not an expert on anything. I'm rather a student of astronomy, you can say that. So the poster though it mentioned some time back that I'm an expert and now it says I'm a scientist, but I will say rather I'm here as an observer because I also want to learn from the members of the Skyverses Association who will be giving one after another talks. And that is very interesting for me because they are the students of the Imperial Material evening class. So it is almost like a homecoming event, and I would definitely want to eagerly learn from them what they have to talk about the moon. And as Mrs. Dalia Ghosh, she gave the introduction. I think she was absolutely beautiful in just 3 to 4 sentences. She spoke about the whole aspects of moon, truly speaking, right? And so my job is easy because I'm not going to talk about technical informations, engineering marvels, or methodologies of observations, or the scientific aspect of moon. I'm just going to engage myself in a dialogue, or rather a storytelling session about moon. I do not know whether I'll be successful, and that is the reason I'm not presenting any PowerPoint presentation, right? So a lot of people may be amazed that every time I give a talk, I use a PowerPoint presentation, and with the help of the pictures, I can speak. So let me test myself that without the help of pictures and slides, whether we can have some discussion. First and foremost, the moon previa. That's what the name I've given to this discussion, at least my part of it. Basically, this International Observe the Moon Night is to celebrate the cultural and the personal connections that individuals and communities have to our natural satellite, the moon. This is very, very important and poignant point. Cultural and personal connection. As mentioned just before me, from the very childhood days, I think one of the first cosmic object that we have started to identify is moon, because about the different folklores, different poems, the way our imagination is to run riot by our parents or elders pointing out to the moon and saying that a person is sitting there, a lady is spinning a weave, and so on and so forth. So moon has become a part of our lives in some extent from the very onset of our life. But as we grow up, we realize that moon is just another cosmic body, but it is the closest neighbor that Earth has got. And also it's a property of the Earth because it's a satellite of the Earth, which is going around the Earth in some particular fashion. So that made us more interested to know about this object where Earth is playing a controlling role. Then, as we learned a little more about it, we realized moon is very important. Why? Because the points that was mentioned by the lady with the introduction, Dalia, that maybe life first happened on the moon. There are so many theories, hypotheses about it, but that is also not the case. And then on we realized that understanding moon is important because understanding the geology, the chemistry, the structure, the motions, it give us some idea not only of the initial state of the solar system, starting using the solar nebular hypothesis, but also talk about what is happening to Earth and what is the linkage happening to the moon. And then now in this digital space age, we are more interested about moon because now moon is being looked up as one of the places of the first habitable that colony or colonization of has created tremendous amount of scientific and technological interest about the moon. I think you have all heard stories about the moon, you know in details, because yesterday I found out there were quite a number of very, very good, informative discussions. And then there were probably some posters, some videos, so on and so forth, and still a lot yet to come. Because just after my talk, one after another, very young minds who are members of the association, they will, I think, take up each and one aspect about the moon and discuss them in a much more technological and technical details. But basically, the word moon itself, I think, comes from the word Mona. No, it's nothing to do with our Hindi name, Mona. Mona comes from the word mensis. Mensis means month. So, moon was used as a measure of time over thousands of years, even prehistoric times. And they have found 17,000 years back inscriptions on cave which gave us the phases of the moon. So, our ancestors that time must have been observant about the moon and used to find out whether there is regularities, peculiarities, and the pattern of the moon, position of the moon as it was going around the earth. Probably that time they never realized that moon is going around the earth, but somehow these things dawned onto the human mind 1500 BC or so. The same moon has different names. If you take Latin, it is Luna. The word lunatic, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Or the word Luna comes from the word Selene in Greek. It's a goddess. It's also a goddess. And obviously, in Hindu civilization, it was called Chandra or Soma. Sombar, Monday. Chandra, Soma. And from the Chandra, even the Islamic, they pronounce it as Chand. The word Chand comes from this word Chandra. Quite a far away moon. But it goes in a elliptic orbit around the Earth. So the closest point, it can be 306,400 kilometers away from Earth. And it can go up to a distance of 406,700 kilometers. The average distance between somewhere in the middle, 304,500 kilometers. It on the Earth, the orbital period, which is also called the sidereal, is around in 27.321. But the side period, which means basically one full moon to another full moon, one new moon to another new moon, is 29.5 days. That is very important because that's how we envisage month. What is the speed? We know the Earth is going around the speed of 29.5 kilometers per second. But moon is quite slow, 1.022 kilometers per second. Being diameter is around 27% that of Earth, around 3,474 kilometers, and the density is less than the Earth. Roughly 3.34 grams per cc. But it's very important because the topsoil of Earth, it is almost 3.3 grams per cc. This information will come handy later on. The surface temperature is quite terrible. Minus 173 to plus 110, range in that. Can you imagine? Or if that have happened, we would not have been present because no physiological system can survive such a temperature fluctuation. We are lucky or not that doesn't happen because the spinning rate of Earth is quite faster than the moon, and secondly, Earth has an atmosphere which evens out the temperature distribution over the globe to some extent. Now, if you take Earth and Moon, two bodies gravitationally attracting each other, so since Moon is smaller, Moon will be going around the Earth. But we all know Moon is not going around the center of the Earth. Because if you go into the theories of gravitation, both the bodies, they go around their barycenter. And if you calculate the Earth-Moon distance, their masses and everything, the barycenter, Earth-Moon barycenter, lies 1,700 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface. That means what? That means as Moon is going around the Earth and we can see it, Earth is also going around the barycenter. And the speed of Earth around the barycenter, because of the Moon, is 12.5 meters per second. Just imagine. So don't think Earth is sitting tight and moon is going round. Earth is also jiggling because of this barycentric motion. Okay, a little bit of the moon. Obviously, the brightest object in the night sky. Second brightest in the sky because sun is there, but in the night sky, the brightest object. If you take the hundreds of satellites that have been observed and discovered in our solar system, it is the fifth largest satellite after Ganymede, Callisto, Europa of Jupiter, and Titan of Saturn. And it is quite dense, quite heavy compared to the satellites, right? Only Io, Jupiter satellite, is denser than our moon. Now, as mentioned, moon has created a lot of imageries in our mind. Even today, at this moment, when we are discussing about moon, some young boy, some young person may be writing 2 lines of a poem looking at the moon. That is our general concept. And the brightness of a full moon, oh, what a beauty. But how bright it is compared to a light. You know, the illuminance of moon, meaning the amount of light that is radiated from the moon and falls per square unit area, per square meter, is around, during a full moon, can vary from 0.05 to 0.3 lux. Lux is a unit which is lumens per square meter, which is not enough. But the maximum can be reached around a supermoon. You all know what is a supermoon, when moon is at its perigee and it is closest to the earth and the full moon looks quite bigger. And that time it can go up to 0.35 lux, which compared to our household bulbs or LED lights is nothing. But somehow it creates that magic, right? So you should expect that as the moon changes its phases, I should not again tell you, because I think in yesterday's and today's lectures and earlier and Wikipedia, you all know what are the phases: waxing, waning, crescent, gibbous, full, new, all sorts of things. But the first was a quarter phase moon, meaning when from the earth, we look at half the size illuminated. So we should expect it to be half illumination than full moon. And it's not the case. It is only 1/10 the brightness of the full moon. Or not the brightness, I will say illuminance of the full moon, for various reasons. And then I just spoke about supermoon. It's a phenomenon. At least in the last 5-10 years, I am finding the media is hyping up the supermoon. Not only from the scientific angle, but also that what it will cause to the earth, what it will cause to the human mind, what can happen, how big it will be, all sorts of things. But we know that at the most, at the maximum, the supermoon, which is the moon at its perigee near a full moon phase, can be 30% more luminous and 14% greater in diameter than a full moon at its apogee. So the variation of size and brightness is quite considerable. And obviously, the crescent of the moon, right? Creating all the beauty, the poetry, even making its place to some of the national flags. That crescent doesn't look like the same crescent all over the world. That is amazing. It depends on your latitude, on your geographical position on the sphere of the earth, on the globe of the earth. Whether the crescent will be like this, or a little halfway between side or up and down, that will depend on from where you are observing it. So you see, such an interesting object looks different to different person, produces different amount of light, and also produces this amazing phenomenon, the halo, 22-degree halo, which is nothing but moonlight passing through the cirrostratus cloud 5 to 15 kilometers above the Earth's surface, which are made up of hexagonal water crystals. As they pass through those crystals, they get refracted by an amount of, say, 22 degrees. And that causes that beautiful 22-degree angular separation halo, band of light around the moon, which is a fantastic picture to behold. Now, as I was mentioning the appearance is also interesting. I think some of you, and Skywatcher Association must have noticed it, right? If you take the waxing crescent meaning as the lighted part is becoming more and more, starting from a new moon, from Amavasya, as we are going towards the Purnima, the first Shukla Pakha, or Krishna Pakha, that and Shukla Pakha, you should call it waxing and waning phase, becoming more and becoming small. So the waxing crescent, if you are a northern hemisphere person, you will see the right side of the disk of the moon, the crescent. How will you know the disk of the moon? Actually, even in a new moon, you can discern roughly the shape of the moon. Do you know why? Because sun is not putting its light on the surface of the moon. It is called earth shine. Light from earth getting, as it receives from the sun, it gets, some part is getting reflected and falling onto the surface of the moon, making it dark, but there is a hint, the presence of the moon. So the waxing crescent is on the right side. If you take the disk of moon on the right side, the first quarter will be half right side, and the waxing gibbous, when it will be a little convex like thing, it will be also on the right side. Then comes the full moon, everything illuminated. Then the waxing gibbous, now it is becoming smaller. You will see the left side of the moon lighted up. Same with the last quarter and same with the waning crescent, all on the left side. And this happens because of the geometry. Obviously, you are very learned people, so you all know why these sort of things happen. So you see, it's quite an interesting phenomena. If you talk to the general people, and forget about all the big theories and all Chandrayans and lunar prospectors and so on and so forth, if you observe the moon night after night, that itself will make you really wonder, wow, that will make itself realize that all these motions that is happening in space, in the solar system, in our neighborhood, that can cause so many different appearances. And as mentioned before me, because there is nothing left for me to be discussed in a serious way, as I told you earlier, moon has played and is continuously playing an important role in making the earth what it is now. Meaning, the earth that we see now, the earth with the pale blue-green dot, as described by the Voyager mission, as or photographed by the Voyager mission long time back. And earth, it's special. Why? Because it is our place of habitation. Life exists on earth. That's why it is called habitable, right? And moon has played a very important role in that. But the question arises, as was mentioned earlier, how did the moon happen? Where was moon when earth was there? Or they formed together? So basically, there are quite a number of theories. And starting from 1898, a very famous person, George Darwin, is the son of Charles Darwin. He gave the fission theory, that somehow, as earth was very hot at that time, almost molten, and spinning very fast, some part went off from earth, typically the Pacific Ocean area, and created the moon. But this theory was shot down because the Pacific Ocean basin is much, much younger compared to the age of the moon. Then there is a fission theory. Capture theory. Moon was passing by, and Earth, because of its size, mass, and gravity, captured it. Some say it has actually captured it from Venus. And there is co-creation theory, that at 460 crore years back, when from the solar disk, the sun was getting born at the center, in the outer periphery, gas and dust condensed, coagulated, and collided, and gave birth to planetary system. One of the system was a little bigger than the Earth, and from there, Earth and the moon was born. But all these three theories, fission, co-creation, capture, were shot down. So the theory, which became more important and day by day is now becoming more important, was given by a fellow called Reginald Aldworth Daly of Harvard University in 1946. He named it as giant impact theory or hypothesis. My favorite personal term is collision ejection theory. collision ejection theory. What it is, around 450 crore years back, typically the size of Mars, a rock, which was earlier named as Theia. Theia is the mother of the moon goddess Selene in Greek mythology. It came and gave a glancing blow to the Earth. Typically, the mass of Theia was 10% that of Earth. And that because of this tremendous collision, large debris ring around the Earth started happening, which ultimately accreted, condensed to form moon. In a recent study, 2018-19, it is now being said that Theia actually existed much prior to the collision at the L4 and L5 of Earth and Sun. That is the fourth Lagrangian and fifth Lagrangian point. Basically, Lagrangian point is a point where the mutual attraction, gravitational attraction of two bodies almost cancels out. So they don't move either way, they remain steady. Right? And L3 and L4 are basically 60 degrees ahead of Earth or in Earth's orbit around the Earth. But some planetesimal, because of the earlier stage, there was tremendous amount of collisions, banging against each other. These planetesimals has perturbed the position, and ultimately Theia came and slammed onto the Earth. So, why this theory is important? Because of quite a number of reasons. Because around 382 kilograms of rock was brought back from moon to Earth in the 6 Apollo missions. And understanding those rocks, analyzing those rocks chemically, and also understanding the spectra of the moon, both from the Earth and also from the spacecraft that was sent onto moon or orbiting the moon using the X-ray fluorescence, gamma ray emissions, and obviously optical, visual, and infrared emissions. One could get an idea and handle of what is the chemical composition roughly. And they found out the surface density is 3.3 grams per cc. Fine. They found out that the moon's oxygen isotopes that are present there are exactly equal to that of Earth. They found out that the titanium isotropic ratio on moon is almost equal to that of Earth. And that can only happen with this giant impact hypothesis. But it can happen if it was born from the Earth also. But the point is that moon have very little of iron in its core compared to Earth. So what happened according to the scientific viewpoint? Theia came and slammed onto the Earth. 10,000 degrees centigrade, the average temperature, everything became molten. The whole iron content of Theia was transferred to Earth, which later slowly went to the center of the Earth. And only the surface material got thrown up and ultimately accreted to give rise to moon, which tells us why there is not much of iron at the moon's core. And not only that, the average density is 3.3 grams per cc, whereas the Earth's topsoil, on an average, has 3.3 grams per cc. So, moon was created from Earth, right? So, in that particular sense, the creation event is also very dramatic. Initially, moon was rotating much faster, much faster compared to this, speed that it is going now, and it is rotating it like on itself, 27.3 degree, because it's a synchronous motion. It is rotating, but at the same time, at the same duration, it is going round. That's why we see only one face of the moon. It is only the gravitational effect of this big brother Earth which slowed the rotation. I mentioned, I think I have already short my time, but if you can give me 5 minutes more, I can continue a little bit. I mentioned that moon has made Earth habitable. Why? Because now more or less 95%, 6% scientists believe it created the tilt of the Earth's spinning axis by an amount of 23.5 degrees. That was the final collision with Theia tilted. It is 23.5 now, but actually it varies between 22.1 and 24.5 over a 40,000 year cycle. And not only by tilting it, by moderating the wobble in the Earth's axial tilts, which led to stable climate, because we know change of seasons occurs because of the tilt. And this stable climate over billions of years used a conducive atmosphere where life could flourish. Moon is important because it created ocean tides, which helped the progression of life from water to land. Even if today there is tremendous amount of work going on in understanding the biology of intertidal locations, meaning intertidal locations is places which get submerged during high tide and then when the water goes down into low tide. And you see there is a lot of living organisms, whether they can be the missing link between the ocean life and the land life. And another interesting point is that at the very early phases when moon was just being born, very molten still, spinning, going around the earth and also going away from the earth little by little, and it was only 1/10 of the distance that from earth than today. It created tremendous amount of tidal interactions on the plates. Plate tectonics happened, and it is because of the plate tectonics today's earth is today's earth. Continents happened, life form flourished in diversity, and from there through evolutionary process, life as we see has happened. At that time, living on earth would have been difficult. 3 hours daytime, 3 hours night. In 6 hours, earth was spinning, a complete spin. You know who created the stability and today gave us 24 hours life? Moon. I'll talk about this because moon is orbiting the earth in the same direction as earth's rotation, right? So high tides occur because earth is moving within that period of time, not every 12 hours, but 12 hours, 25 minutes. So rather from one high tide to the next high tide, it is 12 hours, 25 minutes. And from one high tide to the next day high tide, it will be 50 minutes. If you think that earth, there is nothing, no land on earth, no mountains, no highlands, earth was a water world. Do you know the moon's tide, what water rise it will create? Only a meter rise from the average ocean surface. But because of the ocean floor topography, earth's spin, its obliquity, the elliptical path of the moon around the earth, and the inclination of the earth sun and earth moon plane by 5.2 degrees, and obviously ocean currents, tides vary tremendously depending upon your geographical location. In Kolkata, in Hooghly River, tides can be as high as even sometimes 4 to 4.5 meters, high tides. But places, it can be almost, believe me, 20 meters. Right? So these tides, the height of the tides vary because of so many factors. And another interesting point I should tell you. Suppose you say the moon is at the meridian, right, above me. So I should have a high tide today. Can I say high tide? Sadly, no. Because there is a 10-degree offset between the position of the moon at the top and the high tide happening. Why? Because this lag happens for different reasons. First of all, you have to understand, earth is also spinning, moon is slowly compared to that spinning, and the water body is sort of going round because of the moon's motion, but it is rubbing against the continental shelves and the ocean shelves. So there is some sort of friction that is happening, and that friction causes the lag. Right? Now, you should also understand it is not just the friction that is the cause of a very interesting point. While gravitation causes acceleration and movements of the Earth's fluid oceans, gravitational coupling between the moon and Earth result in a more tidal effect of the moon on the Earth that causes a bulge not only of the water but the solid portion of the Earth nearest to the moon. And this bulge acts as a torque in opposition to the Earth's motion. As a result, what happens? Earth is losing out its angular momentum and rotational kinetic energy from its spin, ultimately slowing down the Earth's rotation. And that angular momentum, in a very physical, sort of complicated mathematical way, lost from the Earth, is transferred to the Moon in a process which is confusingly called tidal acceleration, and which lifts the Moon into a higher orbit than the Earth. And that is the reason every year Moon is going away from Earth around 3.8 centimeters, and Earth's spin is slowing down. How much? By 15 microseconds per year. Very small amount, but over millions and billions of years. Now you know why initially Earth had the 6-hour day, then at a 12-hour day, we have a 24-hour day, and maybe a time will come, we'll have a 48-hour day. Very funny. Nothing in this universe is stable, steady, same, constant. Everything is changing, right? And a day should come when Moon will be fixed on a particular location because it is tidally locked with the Earth. One particular place on geographical location will always see the Moon up there in the sky. But that, I think, we will not be able to see it because the amount of time that is needed to happen, Sun will become a red giant star, and much before that, we'll get gobbled up by Sun because it is technically it will take 4 billion years. Last 2 minutes, calendars, measurement of time. The whole concept of measurement of time from millennia started with observation of Moon. Though you may think that the early civilizations of the Incas or the pharaohs, they all centered around the sun, right? But Moon played a very important role. So lunar calendar was in precedence much before the Gregorian calendar, which basically takes 365.25 days as the period of Earth going around the sun, right? They thought it is sun going around the Earth, maybe long time back, but it is basically the same concept that Earth is going around the sun. So the average calendar month, 12 months in a year, was 30.44 days. But if you take lunar year, one lunar year, because the average lunar month is, as I mentioned, 29.53 days, one Purnima to another Purnima, one Amavasya to another Amavasya, it is only 354 days. So 365.25, 354, there is a mismatch. So either you have to decide which calendar you will follow, lunar or solar. And then the solar people and the lunar people will fight each other because their year is not ending at the same time. And over quite a number of years, the difference will be so big that we will lost totally the concept of time from one end of the Earth to the other end because we are both taking other different reference system as our lunar as our calendar system. So what happened? This difference between the solar and lunar calendar became very important. And you know what the Hindu civilization did? Not 10, 15 years, 100 years, 200 years back, thousands of years back. They said, we believe in a unisolar calendar, lunar and solar calendar. What does it basically mean? It basically means, funny, some from this, some from that. A year is according to the solar calendar, 365.25 days. But the months is according to the lunar calendar. But there is this mismatch, 365.25 and 354. So a discrepancy of roughly 11 days. So how will you? So some year then Durga Puja will be in the winter, and some year you will see Durga Puja happening in the middle of the summer, because 11 days, 11 days, 11 days. That doesn't happen because adjustments are made, intercalations. So every 2.71 years or every 32.5 months, a month is added, or it is added in the sense it is taken out, as if taken out physically from the calendar, and we call it Adhik Mash, Mal Mash, Purushottam Mash. This is the present time is that. That's why Mahala and Durga Puja is 46 days ahead or something like that, more than that, right, of each other. So this continuous adjustments do happen to make the lunar and the solar calendar somehow mix with each other, right? Even in Islamic calendar, they does it, not in a big way, but every 30-year cycle, they add one day for 11 years. Which 11 years that they do through calculation. So, but within 30 years, again, 2 years will match, again, they will become mismatch. End of my story. But you know, mission to moon, amazing amount of efforts. But I just I don't want to take the names and all that. Basically, till today, starting from 1959, the day Luna was sent to take photographs of the moon, 139 missions to the moon. Out of 139, 70 successes, 50 failures. And out of those 70 successes, 8 are still operational. Out of that 8, 2 are Indian. Chandrayaan-1, no, it is not operational. Operational in the sense we have lost communication with it. But Chandrayaan-2, yes. So, if you take the chronology, 1958 to 1969, why 1969 is important, you all know. 20th July, a small step for mankind, a big step for the human civilization. Landing on the moon. From 1958 to 1969, 73 missions. See, just in 11 years, 73 missions. Whereas in 1969 to 1990, in 21 years, only 28 missions. As if people lost interest in moon. But from 1990, starting from a Japanese spacecraft called Haiten, which went around, till today, 37 missions. And already planning is for around 27. And I will say I'm proud of Chandrayaan-1 and 2. Yes. Why you know? Chandrayaan-1 worked for only 10 months effectively because the communication was lost because of a solar storm, destroying the communication system, the electronics. But within that 10 months, it started a new era of moon expedition. Because the Moon Mineralogy Mapper instrument created by ISRO and the Brown University under NASA's sponsorship were the first to tell us huge amount of water ice and water vapor present on the moon surface and the atmosphere. Do you know how much near the North Pole region? 60,000 crores. Amazing. Huge amount of water, and that has created the scientists very excited because they now think, yes, that water ice can be utilized, can be cultivated, can be exploited for human bases to happen on the moon. To exploit moon's low gravity to send rockets from the moon base, to create a human colony on moon. India is also marching ahead. Out of the 28 in the future, Chandrayaan-3 with the Japanese space agency JAXA and Lunar Polar Exploration Mission, another rover mission India is planning, that will do tremendous good for our understanding of the moon. By the end of next decade, definitely human beings are going to land on the moon. But whether they're going to start a colony, a habitation, that one has to see. So the moon base is the new future. Some private companies have already started saying that we are going to send moon by 2020, man to moon by 2024, create a lunar habitation by 2030. But we have to wait and see. So, my friend, I have almost short my time period. I'm sorry to the organizers for that. But this is a fantastic story of our nearest neighbor, the moon. Thank you very much.
So the only question now I have is, why did you stop?
I was given 30 minutes.
Stop,
I have overshot it. Right, sorry.
So now I'm feeling sorry that why did you stop? Simply as that. Means after listening to you, just the one thing that comes to my mind is, who needs a presentation, sir? A presentation would have spoiled this session. It
No,
was
it was
so
a,
spontaneous, so lively, sir. And suddenly you stopped.
thank you.
We were having a great time. We were having a great time.
The young members, they had to speak, and I'm eager to listen to some of them. I have another webinar at 7:30, 7:45, not webinar, a web meeting, but I will try to stay and listen to these fantastic things that they are going to say. And I'm going to learn from them. Believe me, I'm not just saying it. I'm not an expert in this. I'm not a scientist or an expert. I'm a science communicator in a small way.
God help them. They might take it as an exam. Sir, before formally
Okay.
delivering the vote of thanks on behalf of Skywatchers Association, I'd like to say just one line.
Yeah.
We, the very few people who are fortunate to be in the evening class,
Right.
did get a glimpse of you. And your spontaneity, I got it today. Talking to you over the phone many a time. But this is the point, sir, for which I had requested. This was fantastic. Out of the world. Out of the world. So formally, thank you very much, sir. Heartfelt thanks from Skywatchers Association, as well as a very big thank you from me, sir. And for the question part, we've got a few questions here, but as a response to this program, we had received some questions earlier. So Dipankar, after this, Dipankar will read them to you.
Okay.
We had invited questions.
Okay.
So Dipankar, can you take over and pose the questions to sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, the sorry, a question has come that why astronauts care so much about lunar dusts?
Oh, because the lunar dust of the regolith is finer than the talcum powder that you use at home. It is very, very fine dust. And as any spacecraft lands onto the moon surface, the instruments, the different parts of the spacecraft, those depend on the hinges. This dust will creep into all those things and ultimately can make them totally inoperational. So that's why they're very, very worried that we can try to do a lot of things, but this dust can create tremendous amount of problem. And on one of the recent studies in 2019, they have said they can use this dust and an epoxy to bind them and create the bricks, not the physically the bricks, but the building blocks of the habitation on moon also. That is also thought about.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, when we see a full lit disk of moon, why we see dark as well as white patches on the moon?
Okay. Suppose the light falling on me is a little dim light. You will start seeing dark patches and bright parts on my face as well. This is happening because of the shadows of the different features, which is creating the darkness, and the protrusions, which are creating the lighted thing. Same with the moon. Highlands, mares, that is plain basaltic plains, and craters. These features give rise to the light and shade.
Yes, sir. The third question is that we often see a solar eclipse followed by a lunar one and vice versa. So why is it so?
The answer you have to, the question you have to ask to very, very sort of, what will I say, expert people who does a lot of calculations using big codes and all that. But basically the lunar and solar eclipse, they happen, because these two planes are inclined. They will cut along a straight line, imaginary straight line. The imaginary straight line has 2 points, endpoints, basically called nodes. And if the moon comes within 12.5 degrees of the node, or the sun comes within 18.7 degrees of 5 degrees of the node, lunar and solar eclipse happen. Now, because of the position of the Earth, Moon, Sun, everything taken into account, sometimes solar eclipse followed by a lunar eclipse, it can happen.
The next question is, does the moon had atmosphere? If yes, then why it doesn't have it today?
I don't think moon had an atmosphere. Atmosphere meaning a region of space which has some chemistry, which is continuously present on the above the surface. Initially, because of the tremendous collision, heat, lot of vapors. Later on, maybe if there were volatiles, they were also evaporating because of the sun's radiation, the solar particles impinging on the moon. The hydroxyl ions that has been seen tells us maybe water also evaporated, but they could not be held back to create an atmosphere, as you can say, because of the moon's gravity is very weak, right? So moon could not hold those atmosphere, and at present it is almost like a vacuum, almost not vacuum, but almost like a vacuum.
Thank you, sir. And the last question that we have received is why we see the change in the color of the moon as it moves from the horizon to the mid sky.
This is I think I will answer try to answer this thing with another statement. Why do you see the sun as pure white almost up in the sky, and in the early morning or evening you'll see almost like an egg yolk, dimer kushumer moto, orangish color, creating fantastic hues in the sky? The same thing, refraction over bigger air mass compared to in the top than in the horizon level.
Okay. And there are few questions posted on the Facebook that this one is one that if an Indian astronaut plans to go to the moon, will it be possible for him or her to land on the dark side, and build up a settlement for a few days without sufficient sunlight?
The thing is that, believe me, there is no dark side of the moon. Yeah, can I answer this?
Indian astronaut plans to go to the moon, if it is possible for him or her
Yeah.
to land on the dark side and build up a settlement for days without sufficient sunlight.
Yeah, the thing is that definitely, because my friend, there is no dark side of the moon. Right. What we call dark side is the other side of the moon. Basically the dark side is the other side of the moon which gets illuminated in a lunar night for us. Lunar night for us means when you see only partial face of the moon getting illuminated. It's the other side, it is illuminated also. So Indian astronaut, I don't know why it is Indian, it can be any astronaut, right? Sent by Russians, it will be cosmonauts or something else. Indians will be Indianauts or something. As they land, they will get the sunlight. But one day in the moon, it's a little tough. Not 24 hours, 27.3 days, Earth days. So they have to make arrangements accordingly. And obviously, in the polar region, there are regions where you get sunshine because of the slight tilt of the moon's axis, 1.5 degrees to its plane of rotation. You'll get, in a small area, continuous sun. So you can use energy, or you can transport the energy from there to here. A lot of things can happen.
Before going into the next question, just I want to share one thing. We have got the live view of the moon for this moment, and I just want to add this. So, and now I am going to the next question, that this one. Shormide is asking, Bengali calendar follow uni or lunisolar calendar, right?
Unisolar calendar. I think my expression, sort of word was unisolar. Maybe it sounded like unisolar, but it is called basically lunisolar calendar.
Yes. And is there any more questions in? There is a question, but it is not related to the moon. Rather, it is related to the recent discovery of the phosphine on the atmosphere of Venus. Sir, how phosphine helps in formation of life as it
Sorry,
was found on Venus?
sorry. Can you please give me the question again?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Surely.
Yeah.
This is not related to the moon, but it has been asked that how phosphine helps in formation of life as it was found in Venus.
Okay. Daughter of Biplab Das, Bornolipi. Good. I think I'll first congratulate Biplab Das for creating this interest in his daughter. Basically, my young friend, phosphine is a byproduct of some organic processes which happens without any oxygen. So on Earth, in places, there are small pockets where there is hardly any oxygen, in the deep swamps or other places. And they have found bacterial life flourishing there, creating phosphine. But phosphine is also produced very small quantity naturally. But the amount of phosphine that they have found on the atmosphere of Venus is much more than expected from a natural process. So that's why scientists are interested that whether in the atmosphere, though the surface temperature is 450 degrees centigrade, but in the atmosphere where above the surface where the temperature is much less, whether there is any presence of bacterial life, which has given rise to phosphine.
Okay. Hope you have got your answer. And let me check. Is there any other question? No. Till now, there are no more questions in our Facebook also. So thank you, sir, for such an informative, interactive session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And so, again, I am getting back to the live view of the moon again.
Okay. Oh,
I don't know
fantastic.
for how much time we can get the clear window.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What a beauty. What a beauty. Absolute beauty. Success to Skywatch Association. And I hope for its more prosperity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And so we are now progressing to our next segment.
এই মনটা অল ওভার দ্য ওয়ার্ল্ড ওটাকে স্টিল করছে নাসার পক্ষে
Okay, so now it's time to showcase the activities that we have received from our sky loving friends. মানে সত্যি বলতে এটা আমাদের এই রেসপন্সটা পেয়ে খুব ভালো লেগেছে যে এত স্টুডেন্ট বিভিন্ন জায়গার স্টুডেন্টরা শুধু নয় মানে বয়স নির্বিশেষে এত ভালো বিভিন্ন অ্যাক্টিভিটির রেসপন্স আমরা পেয়েছি যে আমাদের 3টে সেগমেন্টে 3 দিনে ভাগ করে নিতে হয়েছে সেই অ্যাক্টিভিটিগুলোকে শো করবার জন্য। এবং এত বিভিন্ন দিক থেকে লোকজন ভাবার চেষ্টা করেছে জিনিসগুলো, সেগুলো আমাদেরকে মানে খুব মানে নিজেদেরকে নতুন করে ভাবিয়েছে সেই জায়গাটা। অ্যান্ড all these things have been reflected in numerous writings, poems, songs, and science as well, as it always does. So now I am requesting Rahinath, who is also a member of Skywatchers Association, to share the activities that we have received from our sky lover friends.
Thank you, Dipankar sir, for this. And I want to welcome everyone to this activity session of our second day program. First of all, in this, I will showcase some of the activities that we receive as a feedback from our audience. Some of these have already been showcased in the yesterday's program, and the rest will be presented on 3rd of October, which is the last day of this 3-day program on observing the moon. So let's start the presentation for today. In this activity session, we had tried to design the activities in such a way that all of us can connect ourselves to the moon while going through these activities. And the main motive of these activities is to know how the moon inspires our lives and how it has been connected to our memories and imagination. The first activity was to draw a poster of the moon through your imagination. For today, I have two of the posters. The first one is by Nandini Bose. As you can see, the blending of the nature's beauty and the moon's beauty have been done very nice by Nandini Bose in this picture. The second one is by Kalyani Vehra. The poster says, in positive word, moon told by lovers, it seems like tasting all flavors. In negative, it doesn't have its own beauty. Due to spots, it looks dirty. But actually, it's a night king who holds our earth in his invisible ring. Well, that's a very nice quote by Kalyani Vehra. The next activity we have, in that we ask the people to convey their vision on how the aliens will look like if they ever exist on moon or anywhere else outside the earth. And this will portray it very well. The picture was drawn by Kritika Bidatto. Well, all I can say after seeing this picture is that if ever exists this kind of good-looking aliens outside the earth, then we must not be afraid of this kind of aliens anymore. Next, there was an activity where we asked our audience to share their favorite quotations that inspire them in various aspects and to share how it fascinates them. I have 4 of the quotations for today. Though the response are from 4 different people, all of them are connected through an invisible string and as a whole gives a very nice and important message of life. The first quotation is by Devangi Kedia. The quotation says, everyone is a moon and has a dark side which he never shows to anybody. This quote is by Mark Twain. What our chosen one says, although it is short, it has a lot of meaning, true meaning. All people have 2 sides, just like the moon. One is bright and the other one is dark. One is good and the other one is bad. Everyone tries to show their bright sides to everyone. They hide the other one, which is dark and dull. For example, a person's wealth is always on the bright side. They never hide it, but things like bad behavior towards poor, greed, and many other dull things are always hidden. We can compare this to the moon. It has 2 sides. One is bright as it reflects the sun's light, and the other one is dark, completely dark. We can always see the bright side, which looks very beautiful and shining to us. But we never see the dark side, which is hidden. This quote fascinates me as I found deep truth in it. And also, if we see the world around us, this goes for everyone, each and everyone. It is a hidden truth that everyone is a moon and has a dark side which he never shows to anybody. The next quote is from Shohile Choudhury and it says, follow me down to valley below, you know, moonlight is bleeding from out of your soul. It's from Steven Wilson, frontman of the British progressive rock band Porcupine Tree, from the song Lazarus. For me, this is the call of our subconscious to leave behind this joyless, materialistic world for a simple life. The structure of the present world system forces us to continuously run through our lives, worrying over material gains and motives, or perhaps fighting every day of our lives for bare survival, without ever being able to pause to see that life itself is slipping away from us. The use of the metaphor of moonlight bleeding out of the soul brings to life an image of the soul bleating out everything that is pure within it, including its very essence, all caused by the injuries that it has received from the world, which would ultimately leave only a shell devoid of life. To stem this bloodshed, we have to follow our soul, which, like the moon, would guide us through the darkness of night that is modern life and would lead us to a valley of happiness and tranquility. It is a call for peace and love. The third quote is from Sakura Konar, and it says, "Don't worry if you are making waves just by being yourself. The moon does it all the time." It's by Scott Stabile. It says, "Today, individuality and originality has gained incremental attention. Being apart from the masses, being proud of yourselves, owning ourselves, these ideologies have gained a lot of importance. People are striving to stand apart. However, there is a bizarre hypocrisy prevailing this view. On social media around us, we observe people trying to fit in with social expectations, in spite of an overwhelming number of people embracing their quirks and personalities, struggling to be both unique yet compatible with norms. People lost themselves, parts of them disappear, dissolve with the populace into homogeneity. There is an increasing albeit opposing pressure of thinking outside the box, yet somehow being able to circumscribe ourselves into a cramped space allowed by society. I believe this quote about the moon, which has been an inspiration for literature and science alike, and her unfailing peculiarity will encourage people to be bolder and accept their idiosyncrasies. The last quote is from Gargi Pawar, and it says, "Frequently on the lunar surface, I said to myself, this is the moon, that is the earth. I'm really here, I'm really here." By Alan L. Bean, member of the Apollo 12 mission. I don't know what's about this quote that's so fascinating to me. This is just mere conversation between Alan and himself. But reading this somehow inspires me, bestows me with the hope that dreams can become reality. Even however impossible they seem at present, if we work on them, they can become the reality. It communicates the emotion that Alan felt, enlightens about the wonderful feeling we get when we finally accomplish the dream that kept us awake for so long, encouraged to admire the beauty of curiosity. I believe curiosity is an important desire that makes our life exciting. But somehow most of us, while growing up, forfeit it, maybe because of the things we don't have control over. And maybe that's why I find this quote so interesting. It motivates me to dream, to be curious. Well, once Dr. Kalam sir said, "You have to dream before your dreams can come true." Here lies the beauty of this activity session. Though we get the responses from 4 different persons, they all lies on the same line, and that is, all of us have a good and a bad in us, and we all are fighting with this good and bad through our entire life. Again, we all are fighting with the fact that we should stand on our own, or we just went with the flow of the society. Well, in all cases, as a responser says, listen to your heart, work hard, and you can definitely achieve your dreams. Just you have to believe in yourself. In our next activity, we have a lunar calendar created by Kalyani Behra, where she created a collage of the moon phases starting from September 15 to the October 3rd. This is a beautiful calendar showing all the phases of the moon starting from crescent, givers, new moon, full moon, etc. The next one is an activity. It's actually a special activity where we ask our people to send their memories of childhood with the moon. And we get a very nice video from Arundhati Mukhopadhyay, a class 8 student, on the topic moon from childhood to the present. Let's see her story.
Welcome friends, today the topic of my presentation is moon. If you are a stargazer and have interest in the night sky, you must have seen our night sky goddess, moon. There are so many interesting stories on the moon. Some are fictional, some are scientific, but today I will tell you about what I think about the moon since my childhood and also a few fun animations. When I was only 6 years old, I used to come to my terrace every day to meet my oldest friend, Moon. Do you know that when I look at the moon, the first thing that comes to my mind is that I am a very lucky person? In fact, all of you are, because the moon was seen by famous people, like some of them being like Rabindranath Tagore, Albert Einstein. But then what makes the moon special to me is that I and my father, when I was really small, I named the moon as Pony because of the craters. Black craters like Mare Serenitatis, Mare Tranquillitatis on the moon, if you have observed nicely. So, when I see those craters, it made me think that all of them together look like a big black pony. But also, some of you must have thoughts about the Chandrayaan-2, right? How did it land there? Did it find any signs of life? Or some of you must be thinking about how Neil Armstrong, an astronaut from NASA, went to the moon and had a soft landing. Did he find any aliens out there? Well, we have no clues. So, it was an experience of wonder for me to share the facts about moon with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy moon watching. Bye bye.
With this wonderful video, we came to the end of our activity session. The remaining feedbacks will be presented on our last day program, which is on the 3rd of October. Be with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahi, for such a good narration and presentation with so many beautiful quotes, and especially the video and the paintings and the lunar phases and much more. And we also have some things also stored for the 3rd of October also. So hope to get some much more interesting activities and hope to continue with them also. So now, as we are talking about activities, so scientists also do activities, and those activities are actually explorations. And when it comes to exploration about moon, nothing is better than to be in the place to study it. And it has been the holy grail of the science for a long period of time. So মানে বাংলায় বললে ব্যাপারটা অনেকটা ওই হাতে চাঁদ পাওয়ার মতন একটা ব্যাপার আর কি, সেটার চেষ্টা অনেকদিন ধরেই চলছে, অ্যান্ড যে করতে পারবে হি অর শি উইল বি ওভার দ্য মুন। সো সেই কারণে হয়তো আমাদের কাছে এখনো ওই একটা কথা খুব মনে আছে যে ওয়ান স্মল স্টেপ অফ আ ম্যান, ওয়ান জায়ান্ট লিপ ফর ম্যানকাইন্ড, এই কথাটা আমরা সহজে ভুলি না। আমরা যদি ইন্ডিয়ার পার্টটা দেখি, ইসরোর পার্টটা অলরেডি স্যার আজকে বললেন চন্দ্রযান 1 অ্যান্ড চন্দ্রযান 2 এই দুটো কি পরিমাণে কাজ করেছে। অ্যান্ড চন্দ্রযান ওয়াজ, উই হ্যাভ লস্ট কন্ট্যাক্ট ফ্রম চন্দ্রযান 1 অ্যান্ড উই অল নো হোয়াট চন্দ্রযান 2 ইজ ডুইং ফর নাও। সো নাও let's hear a few things about the Indian lunar missions. And to tell about something, to tell about this topic, I would like to request Manjuri Roy to present his topic, that is on the Indian lunar mission. Manjuri Roy, a member of Skywatchers Association.
Thank you, Dipankar sir, and hello everyone. Today is the second day of Skywatchers International Moon Observation Night. I, Manjuri Ray, from Skywatchers Association, Kolkata, will deal with the topic of Indian lunar mission. Moon is the closest celestial body to the Earth. Studying the moon has resulted in the creation of proof of many theories, and astronomers have got in-depth knowledge of the planets and solar system, among others, by researching the moon. So it is important not only to study it remotely, but also sending satellite to move, map, photograph, and collect the samples for advancement of science. Till now, ISRO has organized 2 missions on moon, that are Chandrayaan-1 and Chandrayaan-2. The Chandrayaan-1 was launched on 2008 and the Chandrayaan-2 was launched on 2019. The name of Chandrayaan means the moon craft in ancient Sanskrit. The India space journey was started from 1962. ISRO built first Indian satellite Aryabhatta, which was named after the greatest mathematician and was launched by Soviet Union in 1975. In 1999, Indian Academy of Science initiated an idea of undertaking an Indian scientific mission to moon. Based on this recommendation, India's first lunar mission Chandrayaan-1 was launched on 22nd October 2008 from Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota by PSLV rocket. The Chandrayaan-1 reached the moon on November 8, 2008. The spacecraft released its moon impact probe on November 14, which crashed into the moon on the same day. The probe crashes near the lunar south pole. This experiment confirmed the ISRO presence of water molecules on moon's surface. The spacecraft initially performed its work from a mapping orbit at an altitude of 100 km and took a numerous high-resolution images of moon's topography. It carried total 11 payloads. In between them, 5 scientific payloads from India. First one is terrain mapping camera, which provided high-resolution map on the moon. And second one is higher spectral imager, which performed mineralogical mapping. And third one is lunar laser ranging instrument, which returned the information about the moon's topography. And fourth one, high energy spectrometer, which examined the radioactive elements on the surface. And fifth is moon impact probe, which was initially crashed the moon's south pole. The debris from its impact aided the Chandrayaan-1 in search for lunar water. The mission successfully detected in presence of titanium and calcium, along with the accurate measurements of iron, aluminum, and magnesium on the moon. In 28 August 2009, Chandrayaan-1 lost contact with the ground station when it was hovering 2000 km above the moon surface. After a while, ISRO officially declared that mission was over. The probe lasted for 312 days, and however, 95% of the moon achieved this mission. The next mission was the Chandrayaan-2. After the success of Chandrayaan-1, the mission was conducted for topological researches and the mineralogical studies to have a better understanding of the moon's origin and evolution. The main aim of the Chandrayaan-2 was to trace the location and abundance of lunar water on the moon's surface. The mission was targeted to the south polar region of the moon, which was completely unexplored. Earlier, the Chandrayaan-2 was decided to launch on 15th July 2019, but due to some technical problem, it was delayed and finally it was launched on 22nd July from same launch pad by GSLV Mark III. The launcher orbiter pair will go into the initial elliptical orbit uh, followed by a translunar injection. Both will go into an initial elliptical orbit on 20th August. After the orbit insertion, the lander and the orbiter separated on 2nd September. The orbiter evolves into a 100-kilometer circular polar orbit, and the lander breaks from orbit and lands on the surface in the high latitude areas near the South Poles on 7th September. However, just a few hundred meters above the surface, missions control lost all communication with the lander. After several days of internal assessment, it was revealed that the lander failed to slow down to the required velocity, which resulted in a hard landing. Despite of the apparent crash landing, the lander, ISRO has confirmed that all the instruments on board of the lander are working well. Chandrayaan-2 missions consisted of three modules: orbiter, lander, and rover. Orbiter, which one is capable of communicating with the Indian Deep Space Network and the Vikram lander. There will be an imaging infrared spectrometer (IIRS), which will try to identify the minerals and the indicators of hydroxyl ion and water molecules. Next one is lander, which name was Vikram, the named after the greatest scientists and late fathers of Indian space program. It was designed to function for 1 lunar day, that was the 4th Earth days. Vikram had the capability of communicate with the orbiter and the rover, and designed to execute a soft landing on the lunar surface. And after the last one is the Pragyan, that is named of the lunar probe. A 6-wheeled robotic vehicle can travel up to 100 meters and uses the solar energy for its functioning. It would have 2 instruments on a board, and this instrument could test the minerals and chemical compositions and also about the soils and rock formation. Data on and around the South Pole will collected and sent to the information to the Vikram lander, and the lander would send it to the orbiter, and orbiter would send it to the ISRO center. And the launcher GSLV Mark III carried the Chandrayaan-2 to its designed orbit. These 3 stages vehicles of India's most powerful launchers to date. It is capable of launching 4 tons class satellites to its geosynchronous transfer orbit. And the latest updated on Chandrayaan-2 is on the August 12, 2020. It imaged on the crater, which is one of the lunar more region on the moon, which is named after the greatest astrophysicist in India, the Vikram Sarabhai, that is the Sarabhai crater. And the Chandrayaan-2 Vikram lander crashed last year, and its debris was found later on by the NASA. Following this unsuccessful landing on Moon South Pole, ISRO has said that it has plans to launch an orbiter mission to the Moon in 2020. But the Chandrayaan-3 launch has been delayed due to this COVID-19 pandemic situation, and it will launch early of 2021 instead of the second half of 2020. The announcement was made by Union Minister Jitendra Singh, where Chandrayaan 3 include rover, orbiter, and lander. Hope that it will become the successful mission, and Chandrayaan 3 will have great success, new discoveries open up, and avenues of research. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Manjari, for a brief and very informative discussion on India's lunar mission Chandrayaan 1 and 2, and we hope that India will continue as it is continuing its expeditions to moon also in form of Chandrayaan 3. And now, fixing the directions from Earth to moon. What about the directions from Earth? That is east, west, north, south. What about those directions? We all know that there is a star named Polaris. বাংলায় আমরা বলি ধ্রুব তারা, যাকে দেখে আমরা নাকি দিক ঠিক করতে পারি। ধ্রুব তারা উত্তর দিকে দেখা যায়, সেটা নাকি নড়াচড়া করে না রাতের আকাশে। So as it is fixed, ধ্রুব, constant, so that's why সেটা দেখে আমরা দিক ঠিক করতে পারি। কিন্তু if the sky is cloudy like this, then how can you found the pole star, and how can you found the direction of north and the rest of the other directions? But suppose as moon is far more brighter than other stars, the crescent moon is shining in the sky, but no other stars can be visible. Just like this is not a crescent moon, it's a gibbous moon. But if the moon is crescent, then can we find the directions on earth, east, west, north, south, using the crescent moon? And to answer that question, we also have another member of our association, Shreya Ghosh, who will present how to find directions using the crescent moon. So now I request Shreya to present this topic.
Thank you, Dipankar sir, for this lovely introduction. So I'm going to present my screen now. I hope it's visible. So, as Dipankar sir already said, from the dawn of the civilization, celestial objects have played a vital role in understanding the directions and helped us in navigation purposes. Amongst these, the moon stands a significant position in helping us in our ways when we are stranded under the night sky. There are various ways of finding directions naturally using the moon, some of which are rapid, while some are slow, some of which are more accurate than the others. Moreover, we should, while proceeding, we should keep this in mind that all these methods are basically on trial and error methods, trial and error basis, and they may vary by names. So, proceeding with my presentation. Number one is the crescent method. It's a very simple method, and all we need is a crescent moon to understand the direction in a night sky using this method. Imagine a line joining the two horns of a crescent moon and then extending the line down to the horizon as the animation shows beside it. In the northern latitude, this gives an approximate indication of the south, and in the southern latitude, it gives us the approximate indication of the north. Now, to avoid errors and to have more precision, we have to check that the moon is high enough in the sky and not too near the horizon. Thus, as we all know, that the sun and the moon moves across the sky in an east to west. Since the moon reflects the sun's light, its bright side points towards the direction of the sun, that is, the east or west. The line that joins the horns of the crescent moon together is at right angles to the east or west line, and any line that is perpendicular to the east or west line must be the south or north line. That is why it works equally well in the southern latitudes too. For example, New Zealand, this can help us in finding the north. Next comes the shadow stick method. This method can only be performed when the moon is bright enough to cast a shadow. So as the technique goes, we have to place a stick in the ground and mark the end of the moon's shadow with a stone or some other object. After waiting for some time, we have to mark the new position when now the tip of the shadow has moved to. Joining these two lines, scratching a line in the ground to join these two marks. And if the terrain is not suitable enough for this, we can use a piece of string or any straight pole, anything. Now, since the moon moved from east to west, the line that was made will also point to east and west. Now, the last but not the least comes the waxing and the waning method of the moon. When the moon is waxing, that is between the new moon and the full moon, it follows the sun as it crosses the sky from east to west. So as we look at it from the earth, its western side will face the sun and therefore it will be more illuminated. When the moon is in the waning between the full moon and the new moon, it leads the sun across the sky. So the eastern side will face the sun and will be more illuminated. Now, there are various more methods all over the internet, as I've already told. There are various more. While doing this presentation, I've come across some amazing blogs, many more methods which can help us in navigation purpose by looking at the moon. We can get them all over the internet, in, say Wikipedia, Google, anything. So, I'm highly obliged to Skywatchers Association for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to present a minimal presentation in front of you all. I hope this will help us all to understand the direction while we look at the moon when the skies are not so, when the sky is a bit cloudy and we can't see the polaris as Dipankar always said. Thank you.
Thank you, Shreya, for showing us the directions. So how to not get lost if there are no stars, but the moon is there. So, and after this nice presentation of Shreya, as we are seeing the live view of the moon continuously, there are a few misconceptions about moon. Just like the moon, the phase of the moon, just I have mentioned that it is in the gibbous phase. So we are not seeing the full lit disk of the moon. It is almost a 10 days old moon with more than 75% of its disk lit. So if one asks that why the shadowed portion is there, or not shadowed, why this portion is not lit, many of us think that it is due to the shadow of earth falling onto the moon, but not so. If shadow of the earth falls onto the moon, what happens is the eclipse, lunar eclipse, not the phases of the moon. And there are many more misconceptions that we carry with us and carry forward sometimes about moon. So about clearing those doubts, at least few of them, a member of Skywatchers Association have prepared a video about misconceptions of moon. So let's enjoy the video about misconceptions of moon. So this was the few misconceptions that have been made into a video. Hope it will help to some extent to clear about some doubts about moon. So now we have come to the end of today's session. Hope all of you have enjoyed this. Without you, this session could not have been successful or possible, that we have got the responses already previously, and also in the live session we are receiving comments and questions. We are grateful to all those peoples who have stood beside us. We also thank everyone, and obviously we express our gratefulness to Dr. Duari. স্যারের মতন এত সুন্দরভাবে একটা জিনিস বর্ণনা করা বা বোঝানো, এটা তো সবাই আমরা জানি, আলাদা করে বলবার কিছু নেই। স্যার আজকে এসে যে সুন্দর প্রেজেন্টেশনটা বললেন, যে জিনিসভাবে যে ব্যাপারটা বর্ণনা করলেন, এটা তো একটা সত্যি অভূতপূর্ব অভিজ্ঞতা হয়ে থাকে এগুলো। তবে আজকে তো শেষ নয়, আরো একটা দিন আছে, 3rd অক্টোবর, যেদিন আমাদের এই 3-day মুন ফেজ, এই উইক লং যেটা চলবে, সেটা শেষ দিন। সেই দিনও আমরা চাঁদ নিয়ে বেশ কিছু আলোচনা, বেশ কিছু তথ্য তুলে আনবো, চেষ্টা করব সবার সামনে তুলে ধরার। আশা করি সেদিনও সবাই সাথে থাকবে আমাদের। তার ডিটেলগুলো আমরা আস্তে আস্তে পোস্ট করতে থাকবো। সেদিনে একটা খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং বিষয় নিয়ে আলোচনা করবার আছে, যেরকম বেশ কিছু ইন্টারেস্টিং বিষয় নিয়ে এই দুদিন আমরা আলোচনা করলাম, and that topic will be discussed by the president of Skywatchers Association, Basudev Bhattacharya. And the thing is about a little bit lunar calendar. Sir have already mentioned that moon plays a big role in settling down calendars. So this year there is an interesting event going on between Mohalaya and Durga Puja. There is a long gap, and sir have also pointed out towards the direction why that gap is going on. So what is going on actually with moon and calendaric system? So to discuss some of these aspects, some of the things, we will have a discussion on that on 3rd of October, on the last day of our moon phase. And with many more events, many more activities, we will be back on 3rd of October. So be with us, stay safe, and thank you for your responses and support. Good night.